Okay, so Alan, thanks for joining us. How are you keeping at the moment?
Yeah, it's worrying times for everyone, Scott, at the moment. It's like really weird, and I'm not the only one obviously missing football, but obviously, much more important priorities for everybody at the moment to try and establish some sort of normality, get some normality back, and get everybody moving again. Hopefully, it won't be too far away, but it's certainly been a strange time, Scott. And it's been really weird, but hopefully we can get over it soon enough.
I thought it'd just be a good opportunity for us to have a chat about your career and kind of what you're up to now. So if we start off as a trainee, you joined Man Utd, I believe, becoming Sir Alex Ferguson's first signing at the club. I mean, that must be some honour.
Yeah, it's something that I look back on with a lot of pride. Traditionally, like a lot of young players, started off in like grassroots football and managed to progress through the levels, playing for me. I represented my town side, like Bolton, where I was born. That led to me representing my county side, Greater Manchester. And it was at one of the county games, Scott, that we had a United scout watching, and he invited me down. It was called the School of Excellence back then. So we used to train on like a Monday and a Thursday night at the Cliff in Manchester, that United's old training ground. And what had happened was I played a game for the county, and then after that match, the youth development officer at the time said to me, Mum and Dad, would Alan come down over the Christmas period for an extended trial? So yeah, I obviously jumped at that chance, and I think that ran from something like December the 28th to about January the 3rd. It was a really strange time because I had to stay in halls of residence over the new year. So anyway, Sir Alex joined United in November. So I think it was about the 6th of November he arrived. So we had our trials over the Christmas period, and then after those trials had finished, he said like we'd like to offer you schoolboy forms and an apprenticeship. So I remember the car ride home after that particular experience was like one of the happiest moments ever. So yeah. So when I sort of signed, I think it was something like January the 8th. I become like the first signing into that. He was trying to get the youth policy moving and stuff like that. So although a lot of quiz questions will say Viv Anderson is the first fee signing, my claim to fame is, well, I was the first kind of like non-fee signing. So yeah, absolutely, really exciting.
And what was Sir Alex like as a person and a manager? You hear a lot of stories about how good he was with people and how he knew everyone by name and things like that.
Yeah, he was a very tough man. Very set a lot of high standards, because when Sir Alex arrived, Scott, it was like the back in the 80s and 90s, there used to be quite big drinking cultures in football clubs. So you get a lot of lads who train in the morning, and 9 times out of 10 they'd probably end up going playing pool in the afternoon, and that would ultimately lead to a few beers and stuff like that. So when he arrived at United, he tried to like stamp that out straight away, and he used to sort of make sure that his standards were never going to be compromised. So yeah, he was good. And one thing with Sir Alex as well, he kind of got to know everybody. It was like a very family-fied situation. He'd know what your dad was doing. He'd know like about your relatives, and he just had like an encyclopedic knowledge of players and the names and what they were doing. And the remarkable thing with him is like you could meet him like a few years later and he'd say, "How's your dad going on at British Gas?" Or like he'd remember like where he was working. So I think that was one of his great strengths. But yeah, just a complete winner. We'll move on to speak about Bally in sort of in a little moment's time. But I think the great thing with Sir Alex is he hated losing at anything. Like when he was apprentice there, we used to play head tennis after training, and himself and Archie Knox had come into this small gym at the Cliff, and he'd play and play and play until they won. Simple as that. So you could be there for hours and hours and hours. I'd be thinking, I've got to get on the bus back home here to get back for me tea and stuff like that. And it would go to like 5:30, 6:30, 7:00, and then he might win a game, and then he'd go, right, we're the winners, right, you can go now. So he'd just play and play and play till he won. So, but yeah, unbelievable. And like what he went on to sort of achieve with United is like, one of the greatest managers of all time, and what he did is it probably we'll never see that again. Certainly in my lifetime. So yeah, great experiences.
And for you, what was it like being in that environment at such a young age as well?
It's tough, yeah. Like I just come out of school, did my GCSEs, and you're having to go like into the workplace then, and like you've got like lads like Brian Robson and Mark Hughes who you'd have like as posters on your wall, and then all of a sudden you're like in the environment training with them, because you know how it used to work back then. I know it seems to be quite separated these days, where you get the under-18s training together, you might get a crop of 23s or reserve training together, and the first team's kind of trained on their own. But back then, everybody used to muck in together. So it wasn't unheard of, like on a typical morning, on a Tuesday morning, the Archie Knox, who was the assistant manager then, he'd come down with a big notepad and sheet, and they'd just have loads of teams on there, like five-a-side teams. So you might have like a couple of under-18 players, a couple of first-team players, a couple of reserves. So like six-a-side. And in your team, you could like have like Robbo, Mark Hughes, Gary Pallister, alongside like a couple of apprentices. And so it was really good. And I think that's what was really enjoyable about those times. Like everybody kind of mucked in together, and it certainly helped you in relation to developing your skills, and you were around good first-team players. So that was a really nice experience. But I think in the modern day, it seems to be a lot of age v age now. You know, like the nines will play the nines, 12s will play the 12s, and you do get a few players playing up or playing down, etc. But not in a great mass, as it were. So I think that was kind of one of the main differences back then.
And obviously, it didn't work out as you'd hoped at the time. How did you deal with rejection from Man United at 19?
Yeah, that was tough. Like possibly one of my lowest, not lowest experiences in football, but in life generally as well. Just really tough. I'd come to the end of my apprenticeship. I got offered a year pro, which, you know, when you reflect and look back, you think probably the worst contract ever you could sign, because, you know, the pressure's on you. You're going to have to you got one season to play really well to try and justify another contract. So I think I had a decent season. I was kind of playing in the 80, and there used to be four teams back then. So you had the first team lads, resis, A and B team. So B teams usually the first year, second year apprentices. The A team was open age. Used to have a mix of reserves and apprentices. The reserves, you know, a mix of first team lads who weren't playing, coupled with maybe 19, 20-year-olds, and then obviously the first team squad. So I was like playing in the 18 quite a lot, and I was getting a few sort of resi appearances. But like I say, I got called in. I think it was about April or May time. So it was quite late on in the season, and just, you know, you remember these things so vividly. And like I went up the stairs at the cliff, opened his door, and he said like, you know, I've got some bad news, and we're not going to offer you another contract. You know, you're going to have to look for something else, or we're going to have to move you on. So it's like, I can remember like my body sort of crumpling in that moment. It was just a real tough thing to take, because all my family have been United supporters. I've been there since I was about 14 and a half, something like that. So 5 years, it's a real blow. But like anything else, Scott, you got to take it on the chin. You got to take the disappointment, and then, you know, I had to sort of think about, you know, what I was going to do next. I just really left in no man's land. You know, it was a really tough time, and, you know, and it's not just myself. This is still happening to youngsters today. It's probably the hardest thing in football that you got to deal with. But like I say, it's one of them opportunities where you look back and you think, well, I've got to pick myself up, dust myself off, and see what I can do next.
And then you ended up moving to the other end of the country, really, and joining Exeter City in December '91, spending a couple of years at the club. How did that move come about?
Yeah, what happened when I was a first year apprentice at United, I got chosen to go on a trip to represent the Football League in Russia, and it was Ball, Alan Ball was heading the party, along with a lad called Laurie McMenemy. So we'd been over to Russia. So I'd done all right. I played well. I captained the team. We won 2-1, and so I think the good thing there is, like, from that moment, you'd obviously sowed a bit of a seed with Borley. So So when it come to sort of when I got sort of moved on by United, he sort of invited me down to Exeter to go and play down there, and we'll have a look at you sort of thing. So I didn't know, without sounding rude to the Exeter guy, I honestly didn't know where Exeter was, and I was like quickly hunting out my map and to see where I had to go. I think my dad put a map together for me because I was driving a little Fiesta at the time. And off I went down the M6, M5, and honestly, Scott, for that period of time from 91 to about 94, I think it was about 94, I moved on from Exeter. Some of the best times of my life. I really enjoyed it down there. I met some great people, and managed to try and get my career moving again and get it back on track. So it was it was really good.
And what was Alan Ball like?
Very, very similar to Sir Alex, really, because sometimes you drop down a couple of levels, like league-wise, and it turns into a game of tennis. The ball, like you stood in midfield, and the ball's just going over your head all the time. But the great thing with Bally is he believed in football, because of his past being such a great player. So we used to do quite a lot of passing drills, and he used to encourage, to pass the ball, keep the ball. We used to work in little triangles and stuff like that. So it was very similar to Sir Alex as well in relation to hated losing. He could blow his top when he wanted to. So, you talk about that Sir Alex with the hairdryer, but Bally he could go ballistic as well. So, but just because they've been such good players, he set high standards. And obviously, I think sometimes what Bally didn't realise, though, is like, we dropped down a couple of levels. We weren't World Cup winning players. We're not England internationals. We're not Premier League players. And I think sometimes, like we speak about, managers and they don't succeed sometimes. That could be maybe one of the reasons why, maybe expecting too much at you. Sometimes they can't relate to the lower players. So that was a challenge. But yeah, I really, really enjoyed my time down there. We had some good moments and some good occasions, played in some decent games and that. And yeah, it was a really nice time.
And what was St James Park like to play in the 90s? I mean, it's a little bit different to what you'd experienced prior to.
Yeah, well, again, it's, you talk about culture shocks and things like that. United, you had everything done for you. Your training kit was all always ready for you. You could get new boots whenever you wanted them. But then, like when he arrived at Exeter, you had to clean all your own stuff. You had to. My mate Coops, like Dave Cooper, who used to end up in a laundrette on Sunday night, getting all the training kit ready for Monday. So yeah, it was interesting. But St James's, I think it was kind of when I went down, I think they've obviously had the glory of Terry Cooper winning the league in 89, 90, and it's just trying to follow that on sort of thing. And I think again that's quite difficult to do. So I think Bally, when he first came down, he tried to bring in some senior pros to help him. He had like a lad called Stevie Williams there, like ex-Arsenal in England. He brought Vince Hilaire in, who was an outstanding player. Brought Stevie Moran in, who was a centre forward from Southampton. So he tried to bring some senior people through, and then I think he tried to bring some youth players, like get the youth sort of system sorted as well, alongside like with Raddy back then, Mike Radford, and I think he started to get like quite a good blend together, and it was good times, yeah, really good times. Remember my debut was against Wigan Athletic, and quite fortunate really. I think Scotty Eiley had picked up an injury in the sort of the week, and Bally pulled us. I think it was about Thursday, and said, "Right, you're going to be playing Saturday." So again, you talk about striving for things and like playing in the Football League. So I think that was a really sort of important and big moment in my life, making my debut. But unfortunately, it didn't go as well as we planned. We lost 1-0, an 89th minute winner from a lad called Brian Griffiths at Wigan. And I remember halfway through, Scott, the crowd were booing us, and we were saying like, "What a load of rubbish!" I'm thinking, "Crikey, this is my debut," and like the crowd are on us there. So it was really interesting. So, but no, it was good, and very, very proud to, one, make my debut in the Football League for Exeter, and two, get it under Alan Ball.
You obviously got to play in the most important games of your career in the Devon Derby. What are your memories of that?
Yeah, that was really interesting because what I can remember about that day was an early kickoff, obviously because of the crowd situation. But I think, Scott, it was like early. I think it was an 11 a. It was either 10:45 or 11 a.m. kickoff that morning. And what I can remember in the week building up to that was like Borley was saying about how important it is to the fans, because that's, he said, he's had it with like Portsmouth and Southampton. He said he's played in like Everton, Liverpool derbies, and he said he understood how much this really means to the supporters. So he was he had us wound up to the eyeballs all week, and I think we were frothing, we were frothing at the mouth, and we ran out on that occasion. But yeah, a really good occasion. Really nice to see St James's Park with loads of like a big crowd, and I think we had like 6,500 in that day. And it was one of the most memorable games because of the situation where it could have ended up about 5-0. We had about 3 goals disallowed for offside, and it just went. It was one of them games that seemed to go really well. Like Borley had collared us in the week, and he said, "I want you to do me a man marking job in that game." He said Warren Joyce, who he'd identified as Plymouth's main player, you don't let him out your sight. That's your job to follow him all over the place. So I seen Warren Joyce a little while ago. I was lucky to go and have a look round Carrington, and when he was the United sort of youth academy coach. And I reminded him of that day, and he said, "Yeah," he said he could remember like he had sore calves after and stuff like that. So I must have done a good job on him, Scott.
You talk about the 90s. I mean, there's one thing that we have to talk about, isn't there?
Oh, no, look at that.
I mean, that must have given you an advantage in some games, surely. Just the fact that, give you a headache if you're playing against it, wouldn't it?
Yeah, I think when you played in that shirt, I think you used to go to bed after, and it just like stripes in front of your eyes. You couldn't see, I think, all night. So that was I don't know who designed that one, Scott, what the story is, but it looks as though like we'll put a shirt against a wall and let's go and get some blue and yellow paint and just throw it all over it. And this is the product,
And match it with yellow shorts as well.
Yeah, the yellow shorts, and I think we had like dark blue socks with like a yellow. It was like a yellow turn up, I think, on the socks. So that was an interesting one. Again, we'll have to have a look at the Exeter City historians to see how many times that kit was worn. But I can remember a couple of occasions. I know we wore it in the away at Swansea in the Autoglass Trophy. We definitely wore it, I think, away at Stoke City when we went to play Stoke, who were like top of the league at the time. So I think quite an iconic shirt, really, in sort of Exeter City fans, is that kind of hearts and eyes. But yeah, in relation to playing in the floodlights and stuff like that, it was difficult to see each other. But I think it was difficult to see each other anyway. So some of our players, I think they struggle with passing a lot of the time. So. But no, it was good. Good times, Scott. Really enjoyed getting that shirt. And it was an interesting shirt, wasn't it?
Absolutely. You sadly had to retire from playing in '96 at 24 years old due to a brutal spine injury. How did that come about? Was it something that you'd had a while that progressively got worse? Or?
Yeah, it was according to the surgeon. So I went. I don't know what had happened. I'd started to pick up a bit of pins and needles in my legs, and it started to get into my arms and my hands, and it started to become a bit of a concern. So I said to Mike Chapman, who was the physio at the time, I'm going to have to sort of try and get this sorted out. I was stupid, Scott, to me. I played with it because my contract was running out, and I thought, well, I need to try and get in the first team and justify another deal. I just kept playing with it for about a month, and it was the most stupidest thing you could have done. And I went for a scan at Frenchay Hospital, Bristol. They had a look at the X-rays and they said your back's in a bit of a mess. So I ended up having 2 operations on it. I ended up having screws and plates in my spine. So I did try to get back. I went through a rehabilitation situation where I was kind of trying to run again, but it come to a point where surgeon sort of said, "You're not going to get to the fitness that you need here." And I think from a psychological perspective, Scott, as well, I was worried about, like going up for a header and someone kneeing you in the back or something. So I had all that to sort of overcome. So I think I made the right choice by saying, yeah, I'm going to have to maybe think about looking for something else to do.
But how do you react, you know, at that age, being so young, giving up
Oh,
your dream?
again, you've had like a really bad deselection experience at United, coming out United, and then a few seasons later, it's like you're having to kind of face that again. And yeah, just completely lost again. I think I just didn't know what to do. Footballer was something that I'd known for a long time, and you know, from you speak about the mental health situations in the modern day, I just didn't know what to do. I think Eamon Dolan, he was the community officer at the time at the club, Eamon, and he said we'll get you a bit of coaching work. So I was doing quite a few little community in the coaching sort of hours. But the problem with it, Scott, was it was only seasonal. So like summer holidays, Easter holidays, Christmas, and you're thinking, well, it's great that, and I loved Eamon to bits, and I'm so glad that he could give me some hours, but I needed a bit more really. And so I just ended up going through a succession of jobs really, and working in the warehouse. I was working for um, uh, doing a lot of driving work, and it just trying to sort of bring a wage in really. Um, so after a few years, sorry, I made probably the best decision. I moved back up north again, and I decided to go and re-engage with my education, and went back to university. I think it was 28. So for packed in at 24, probably 4 years before I sort of made the right call to try and get my life back on track. So if somebody had maybe pulled me at 24 and said, well, you're quite a bright lad, you've done a BTEC while you was at United, that'll get you into and spoke about a few options, I might have been able to make that decision a bit sooner. But it's like back in those days, you're almost like left to your own devices, like just go and get on with it sort of thing. And I think that was a tough time before I managed to get some sort of solidity back.
I mean, mental health is huge in sport, isn't it? And it's crucial, I guess, that clubs now have that support in place for people. And it's good that you also see a lot of players, you know, like you're saying, doing things outside of their football time, you know, taking degrees and getting prepared for when their career does come to an end.
Absolutely, it's so important. I think just a sort of a collectively across the football world, I'd always say to young players coming through all the clubs, the apprentices at Exeter, and all over the 91 clubs at the moment, and even the sort of some of the full time clubs in the National League. You've got to try and have like a plan B if you can. Education and football, sometimes it's a funny mix because of the culture. I think a lot of footballers are a bit suspicious of academics, but I think if you can, even if you're like learning a language or something, or you're doing, you're learning a trade or anything that, because I think you can do the both, Scott. You can do the both. Footballers got plenty of time in the afternoons after they finish training, and you could do online courses, these days and things like that. So it's always worth trying to just have something as a sideline. Yeah, if football, everybody wants your football to work out, get to 35, 36, 500, 600 appearances, won a few things, fantastic, and you can look back and say, you've had a good career. But those types of players, they're only very small. And I was talking to a lad from the coaching manual last week about a mental health kind of webinar that I did, and it's so true. You just don't know what's happening from season to season, and you could have a bad injury next week, and the worst thing ever is like a footballer having an injury, but that could like curtail your career, and you're only one tackle away from it. That's the harsh reality. So I'd always recommend younger players, if they can pick up other things as well while they're on the journey, and it certainly won't harm, and it can broaden your knowledge as well. If you do courses on fitness, nutrition, performance analysis, even getting your coaching badges in, Scott, it just gives you a little bit more broadness to who you are as a person. And and then when you do have to make that transition, which all footballers have to do one day, at least you've got a few bits and pieces in your armory to maybe move your life on a bit quicker than maybe 24 years to kind of move mine on. But that'd be the sort of the bits of advice I'd give on that.
I believe you're an ambassador for Mental Health FA as well. Can you tell us a bit about that?
Yeah, sure. It's a lad contacted me a couple of years ago, and it's like really just raising awareness, Scott, to be fair, and try to promote the importance of opening up and speaking about mental health and sort of the challenges that everybody has. it's all about trying to normalise the conversation. You always hear that in physical health, if you've got a bad back or a bad leg, you go and see the physio. Whereas, mental health, especially in football cultures, it seems still to be a little bit more of a taboo subject. A lot of people don't really want to talk about it. You're supposed to be seen as this macho, masculine man who can deal with anything that gets thrown at them. And I think it's important to drive that. If you are feeling a little bit under the weather, or you don't feel yourself, or you're struggling a little bit, it's important to not to bottle that up and to open up. So I kind of got involved with the awareness side for Mental Health FA, and I've also been doing a little bit of work with Manchester Mind as well. I try to raise a little bit of money here and there for in relation to, I did a golf event from last year, and I've done so like the webinar. We had a little bit of a money raise from that, and it's just trying to get that subject a little bit more, get players to open up a little bit more and speak about how they're feeling. And it is a brutal world. Football's a really tough industry. There's lots of difficult challenges in there. It's not all fluffy and nice in football. It's about tough times. There's lots of deselection. There's lots of injury stuff. There's lots of, not everybody gets on well with the teammates. So sometimes you have dressing room spats, but ultimately you're in it together to win a game and to try and do the best that you can as a unit. So that ultimately that's your job. But alongside that, there's tough times as well, because ultimately you can only pick 11 players at one time. So you might have 2 or 3 lads in the dressing room where if they smell a bit of weakness around you, or you're not yourself, it could give them an advantage to try and sort of drive themselves into the first 11, or sort of do something that the manager will think, wow, he's really proved himself this week. So as you are driving towards the same thing, but sometimes it can be a little bit strange in a football environment. But it's all about experience and learning from it. But yeah, certainly in relation to the mental health stuff, you need to sort of find opportunities where you can open up a little bit about how you're feeling at certain times.
It seems to be a bit of a sad expectance that abuse towards footballers is, the norm and acceptable. And this, especially with the modern age and social media, it can be taken way, way too far. I mean, it shouldn't be the case, should it? You wouldn't go to someone in the supermarket doing their job and start, having a go at them if they weren't doing it very well.
It's a great point. I think with this sort of boom of social media over this last period, this last sort of 10 years or so, I think the world and his wife has an opinion, which is fine. Everybody's entitled to their opinion. But the thing is, Scott, sometimes there's no middle ground to it. It's either like, if you have a bad game, you're absolutely garbage, or if you play really well, you get the praise for that. There doesn't seem to be any sort of in between sometimes. And I think with the social media, because a lot of people can go on like anonymous accounts and stuff like that, they can give you a few pelters here and there, and it, not necessarily in a performance base, but there's been some vitriolic stuff on like racism and sexism, and there's been some nasty things sort of posted over this last period. So I think that is one of the downsides. And I know some of the football lads have the social media stuff in their accounts, but sometimes it makes you wonder whether it's the stuff that Exeter have done over this last sort of few weeks with the, like Matt Taylor came on, and I think there's been a few players, Pierce Sweeney, and I think there was a couple of other lads. I think Jack Sparks been on, and open up to the fans where they can ask them some questions. I think that's absolutely brilliant, because it gives you an opportunity to engage with a person who's at a professional club, who's making first team appearances, to ask him about the diet, or what's the challenging things, or what do you recommend for young players. But I think that if you did that with maybe higher players like Pogba's or sort of elite level lads, I guarantee you there'll be some great questions, but there'll be some like idiocy as well. So it's difficult sometimes. I don't think it's going anywhere fast, Scott, social media. I think it's here to stay. So I would suggest that you just sort of make as best as you can out of it, and maybe don't take the comments that are posted about you too much to heart. It's just opinions at the end of the day, isn't it? So
definitely. Going back to you personally, what advice would you give to people who find themselves in a similar situation to you. I mean, it doesn't even have to be, you know, in sport. It can be in anything in life. If you suddenly find out you can't do what you'd hoped.
Yeah, I think, like I say, I think the thing that I'd pass on if I could sort of go back to my younger self is just to try and see. It's hard because everybody has different experiences and there's all different contexts. You know, in footballers, some get short careers, some get medium careers, some get long careers. Some people win stuff, some people don't win stuff. So everybody has different contexts. But I always feel like, from my context, I think that you could have maybe done something as that was running alongside your career, and you know, instead of being dragged to the bookies in the afternoon or go and play in pool, or you know, do something a little bit more constructive. You know, some players, again, contextually, will plan really well for the next steps out of football, but some will bury it and won't want to face it. So my advice to them would be to try and think about, you know, football's only a temporary existence. It doesn't last forever. I know a lot of lads, after coming out of football, will want to go into coaching or managing. But again, Scott, they're only like limited opportunities. Unfortunately, not everybody will get coaching opportunities and management opportunities at the level they want to coach at, i.e., I want to look after a first team, I want to be a first team coach. You know, it's a very, very tight opportunities, though. So I would think about, you know, if you did want to follow the coaching path, you know, just start thinking about picking up your different licenses and your awards. And if not, if coaching is not for yourself, you know, maybe think about what you can branch into a little bit early. So I ended up in sort of education, like to become a lecturer in sort of after I've done my degree. And the reason for that was I enjoyed sort of some of the lecturers' presentations when I was at university. Plus, it was related to sport as well. So I thought I could maybe see myself in that role, and then that's kind of like sort of what I went into. And I would think that a lot of players have got to be thinking about, you know, what could I do if football runs out sort of tomorrow, or I don't get contracts, or you come to the end of your career. You've got to have something that you're going to sort of step into. That's kind of the best advice I could pass on to any player, whether you're a young apprentice, an early years pro, a middle years pro, or a senior pro. You're going to have to come out the game at some stage in relation to your playing days. So think about what you can do, you know, to try and get yourself moving again once your playing days are finished.
As you were saying, you've been a sports lecturer for over 15 years now. Have you found that your life experiences have really helped with the way that you lecture?
Yeah, I think what I try to do, Scott, I try to care a lot for the people that I work with. I try to help them as much as I can. Carry a few little things from Sir Alex and Borley into my teaching, like, you know, setting decent standards, trying to point young people in the right directions. You know, not just from an academic perspective and their academic development, like, you know, learning to present or learning to write essays or learning to put dissertations together, but in the personal life as well. You know, how you conduct yourself outside of university. You know, treating people with respect, being mannerable, having good ethics, being honest. One of my sort of big things is to be a good timekeeper. You know, if you've got a job interview at 2:00, you know, be there for 20 to 2. Get yourself ready for it. Don't be rushing there at like 1:57 or something. So just little things that hopefully can help younger people on their journey. That's kind of like what I've used some of my experiences to try and help me in that particular trade that I'm in at the moment.
Recently, you've been doing some commentaries on City games in the Manchester area. How did that come about?
Absolutely love doing that. I think it came via, I was on a programme up in Manchester called Red Wednesday, and it used to be on 1 hour every week, and they used to look at used to have a chat about United for an hour. And it was a lad called Bill Rice, who's the head of sport at BBC Radio Manchester at the moment. And I think somebody had contacted Bill to say that Exeter are up at, I can't remember which team it was. I think it was a team in the northwest. It could have been Macclesfield.
Yeah, I think that was the first one.
Yeah, could have been Macclesfield, Scott. And they said, like, do you know anybody who's like? And he said, well, like Alan used to play down in Exeter, so I think like he'd be a reasonable fit, really, if you are looking for somebody. So I sort of did the co-commentary, Exeter, Macclesfield, and then since then I've done Morecambe, Bradford City. Any time Exeter are up in the sort of northwest region. Who else have I done? Scunthorpe. Let's have a think. So yeah, I've done a few in locality. So that comes from like BBC Radio Devon to like Exeter, obviously up at Mac in a couple of weeks. How long do you fancy doing the core comms? And you know what, Scott, I absolutely really enjoy that. It's been fantastic, and you know, a big shout out. Like, it's usually James Vickery at Radio Devon who works out. James is fantastic, and I really enjoy that. Alan Richardson's the lad at head of BBC Radio Devon Sport, who's been fantastic. So they've been really good. They've been really good, and that's just a little thing that come from nowhere that I really enjoy doing. So,
how did you find the experience the first time you did it as well? Because I'm guessing it's a little bit different to try, following the game and explain.
Yeah, absolutely, and it's just trying to, like anything else, you probably get better with the experience, and I think it's just trying to create pictures, really, isn't it, for people who are listening on radio in relation to how crosses are knocked across the goal and how the chance arose. Trying to just get that imagery for sort of people who are listening in, and I think the first couple of times, Scott, as well, is just doing my own work and just trying to get to grips with some of the players, because obviously I follow United is probably my main side, so like coming to sort of watch Exeter play and not being too familiar with all the playing squad. Like I knew a few people, some of the senior lads, Nicky Law and D Mox, I knew of those, but getting yourself like familiarised with some of the other players as well. So hopefully not too much on the radio getting the players wrong and stuff like that. I think that sometimes can be a bit tricky. Especially Scunthorpe was difficult because of the glare of the floodlights. You're trying to pick out who the players are, and you just sort of like try to do your best with that. But
you're often sat quite far from the action as well, aren't you? Like right at the back. So
absolutely. So that was really interesting, and like I say, I've really enjoyed that. Just like used to see Stu from the Western Morning News as well, like quite a lot. I think like I've known Stuart for quite a number of years in relation to like through social media and asking how you're doing how you're going on. So it was great to hook up with Stu finally as well. So that was really nice.
And what have you made of what you've seen on the pitch as well over the last couple of seasons?
Do you know what, Scott? I've been really impressed. Couple of the games this season that I've commentated on, been very impressed with some of the football that Exeter play. I think it was one of the more impressive one. We drew 1-1 in the end, but it was Crewe away. The first half, Crewe were like pushing for promotion, and they were like, I think they were about second or third in the table at the time. But Exeter could have been about 3-4 up at half time, absolutely trounced them. So I think that was probably one of the best halves I've seen this season. So, but yeah, in some of the other games as well, I think in majority of the time, I think Exeter have performed nicely and they put some really good wins together. Like they won at Morecambe 3-2. They beat Grimsby away from home as well. That was a bit of a sucker punch. I think it was Nicky Law who got the winner on that occasion. But I think there's only been a couple of games where it's been could have done better. Scunthorpe away wasn't the best of performances, and I think we got done at Bradford as well. But there was a bit of a contentious refereeing decision near the end of that game. I'm not too sure. One of the centre halves, I think, got a red card.
Red card.
Yeah, and for me, it was like the Bradford player made a meal of it. I don't think it was like a red. So, but yeah, I think they've been doing really well. Like they were close to getting promoted last season. I thought like with Matt's kind of knowledge and experience and the know-how of getting there and just maybe moving on a little bit more, I think he was well on the way to doing it this season. Unfortunately, the season's been curtailed, and I don't know if we're going to get it back on again. But it was a shame. I think they was doing really well, and certainly knocking on the door, weren't we, getting promoted? So that's a real shame.
Definitely. Just finally as well, you're very supportive of the club on social media still. Do you reckon we'll see you down at St James Park one day in the future when it all goes back to normal?
You know what, Scott? When I left Exeter, I think it was about 96, 97. I think I went back up north. So I'd come out of the club, done a bit of coaching for a year or two, and I thought, well, I'm going to move home, move back up to my roots. And I've never been back since. I know it sounds amazing and bizarre, but so I keep saying to like Stu and a couple of the other guys, like I do promise that I will get down again, because it was such a really nice time in my life, and I'd really sort of like to come back and maybe go and have a look at the Cat and Fiddle training ground again, and maybe catch a game down there. I definitely will. I definitely will. It's a beautiful part of the country, and I'll hopefully can get down there in the near future. It's long overdue.
It's changed a lot since your time as well.
Yeah, absolutely. And like you say, like different stands have gone on there, so I'll probably like look at it and think, wow, this has changed like so much. But changed for the better, Scott, and it's really good at the moment. The club's in a good state, isn't it? So that's great to see.
Absolutely. Well, thanks for your time, Alan. It's been very interesting.
No worries, Scott. Thanks for inviting me on.
Brilliant. And stay safe as well, and hopefully we'll see you soon.
Yeah, thank you, Scott. Thank you so much.
Thank you.